I've co-authored 2 books on vSphere design and invited to speak at industry conferences. I've been speaking at the HP conference for the past 6 years. And VMware gave me a title of V-Expert, which is actually not a certification, but what that means is that I write blogs, articles, Twitter, and they like my articles, so they gave me this V-Expert title. So that's my credentials, and let's continue on. So we already talked about I saw people talked about the costs of managing servers and devices. This is a cost, according to a study, of managing PCs. For every $1 that you spend in hardware and PCs, you spend $3 in management. And you folks are doing that. So that we already talked about, previous speakers already talked about a lot about, SaaS and IaaS and all the cloud definitions. Okay? And of course, underlying the cloud technology is virtualization, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with this in this room. And at this point, most of the servers out there are virtualized. Some are in your on-premises environments, some are in the cloud. At this point, as an administrator, you sit there and you say, okay, what else I gotta virtualize? Because I need to save more money, I need to be more efficient. So what else can I virtualize? And the next area you can virtualize is desktops, okay? And desktops virtualizing desktops allows you to achieve even more data portability, because you have all of these apps, Google Apps now, and some of your apps are, like e-maintenance and everything are already in the cloud. But there's still a lot of apps that are running your Windows PCs, and you have to go up and troubleshoot them and fix them. So how do you make sure that these apps are also somehow in the cloud? Because there's still plenty of them, right? Well, if you virtualize a desktop, all the apps on this desktop are going to be virtualized and be running in the cloud. So it's the next stage of virtualization and cloud management. So what are the 3 types of virtualizing desktops? So the first type is virtual desktop infrastructure, which is running in your private cloud on premises, okay, in your data center, and you're offering virtual desktops to your users. The second one is you say, all right, well, you know what? I don't want to manage it. So we have a client of mine, Gary, from Water Quality Insurance Syndicate. A smaller shop. He went with virtual desktop infrastructure first, which is the on-premises one. He has about 30 users. So he went with that first. Well, we built that for him, and he was happy. But at a certain point, the organization wanted to save more money, and they gave him more responsibility. So like he said, look, I can't even manage these virtual desktops. I need to offload it. So then he went to Amazon or in VMware, which allows you to have a desktop in their public cloud, which is the third item here. And he said, well, okay, it's all nice and good, but it's far away, and it's pretty expensive, and they're pretty rigid. And then he looked also at a couple of boutique clouds. We run one boutique cloud. We have 2 data centers, one in Parsippany, one in New Jersey, and one in Atlanta. And he said, look, you guys have a more customized service. I can call you up and ask you for things. And I have only 30 users, so he's now running our cloud, right? We're not Amazon, but we're cheaper and we're more customized. So that's the 3 types of clouds you have. On-premises, the public, and something in between, right? That is a smaller cloud. So I'm sure you guys have heard the term virtual desktops before. They've been around for a long time, okay? But only now they're becoming very, very hot as a next area of virtualization. Why is that? Why is it they've been around for so long, but it never took off, and now they're taking off? Well, the big thing is the cost of storage is coming down significantly, especially the cost of flash and SSD storage. And flash and SSD storage with deduplication allows you to put a lot of virtual desktops out there. And as a result, you can now save money on the storage and virtualize your desktop. So that's one factor. The other factor is, until maybe a couple years ago, when you had a virtual desktop, you could not do all the graphics with it that you could on a normal desktop. Okay, for example, your ArcGIS software that you run, right? You couldn't use it because virtual desktops weren't as powerful. Well, that's no longer the case. At this point, you can do anything you want on the virtual desktop that you do on a normal desktop. And here's an example of it. You have Google Earth, which is similar to ArcGIS, right? And you can now buy a card from NVIDIA that accelerates specifically virtual desktops. And for example, previous virtual desktops, a couple years ago, if you put in Google Earth, you'd see nothing like this, right? If you try to zoom in, because you wouldn't be able to handle the graphics. Well, now with this card like that, handles the graphics no problem, right? So anything, Photoshop, AutoCAD, no problem. We can still virtualize your desktop. Usually we'll still get the same or better experience. That's another reason why virtual desktops now are very hot. So I talked about virtual desktops, but for those who are not clear what that is, what is it? Well, for a laptop, you have a normal laptop sitting in front of you, and you have its keyboard and a display here, and the brains are inside the laptop, right? And it's chugging along like this one, freeze on you. With virtual desktop, what you have is the brains are in the data center somewhere out there, either in your own data center for your private cloud, or in boutique cloud data center, or somewhere in Amazon. That's where the brains are and the processing is. The only thing you have in front of you is the monitor, the keyboard, and a mouse, right? But it feels just like a normal desktop. It's an actual Windows desktop. So there's no difference in feel, but the processing is somewhere else. Okay. And as far as data portability, things become much simpler now when you have a virtual desktop. So you can still run your Windows apps, but you can run them from pretty much anything, right? From your phone, okay, from your tablet, supports pretty much any tablet out there, any phone, from from your Macintosh, PC computers that are at home, from thin clients or zero clients, which are like little devices like the old dumb terminals of back in the 70s, right? Except unlike dumb terminals, they display a full virtual desktop with graphics and everything. So pretty much any device out there. So your users work on a document, on the Word document, and stop like mid-sentence and went home. They can get on their home PC, log back into virtual desktop, and it'll be exactly that particular mid-sentence. Where they left off, they can continue on working. Or they can then go to the couch, jump on their iPad, and continue working with a full Windows desktop from their iPad. So data portability galore, pretty much go anywhere. In fact, I have a video out there where I was on the plane, and I decided to log into our lab, just for the hell of it, and see is it going to work or not. Well, it worked. I was at 30,000 feet, and the latency was like 600 milliseconds, 600 to 900 milliseconds. Okay, and yet I couldn't run video, but I can open documents and I could type text. Okay, and this was about, I think they were like 2 or 3 megabits bandwidth and about 600 to 900 millisecond latency. So you can see that even at that really slow connection through the satellite, I could still use and work in my virtual desktop. Okay. Now, I showed you that you can access a virtual desktop from various devices. The next question is, okay, so let's say I bought a few iPads from my organization. Okay. How do I manage these iPads, right? Or your users brought their own devices from home, which a lot of users nowadays do, and they're expecting to be on your network. Well, what if a user brings a jailbroken iPhone to your environment that has a virus, or an Android device, which are most acceptable to viruses, and they they connect to your Wi-Fi, and now this could be uploaded to any one of your computers out there. So there is a risk to you as an administrator in order to, there is a risk from these devices are coming in, personal devices are coming in from a user. Okay, and it's funny, but this story just happened to us this Valentine's Day weekend. I'll talk about it in a moment, but this particular situation just happened to a customer of ours like a couple days ago. So when users bring their mobile devices, you want to manage them too, and mobile device management, mobile application management is such area. We at CDI use the leading product called AirWatch from VMware. If you look at the Gartner Quadrant, it's the leading product. That allows you to, if you have a corporate-owned device, you can fully take control of it, secure email, you can make the apps appear or disappear in the device at will. You press the button and the app just appears for the user. Or if the user brings their own device, then you can establish a policy that says, okay, well, if you jump on my network with your own device, guess what? I'm going to download an agent on your device, but I'm not going to monitor your device. Most people don't want that. The only thing that agent is going to do is going to allow you to access the corporate or the organization piece of software, like corporate email, corporate applications, through that one application on their phone. And so as you log in, you get that app on your phone, and you can use all the corporate stuff. However, if let's say that employee suddenly leaves the company, you can press a button, and that corporate app with all the data in it, all the email, will be removed from their device. So the employee cannot keep corporate data when they walk off. Okay. Also, the data is secure. So essentially, what that means is they can use their personal phone wherever they want, but the corporate data is separated out. So and here's a dashboard for AirWatch. Allows you to see all your devices. It allows you to click the button and suddenly push apps to devices. Pretty much full control of corporate or personal devices to the degree that you want. So let's say you decided to go to virtual desktops, okay? And maybe you're managing your mobile devices, mobile device management. Well, how would your process change? How some of the processes in your IT organization change when you have a virtual desktop? So Valentine's Day weekend, actually Thursday night before Valentine's Day weekend, a customer called us, a smaller customer. They have 300 PCs and 150 servers virtualized. Don't have any virtual desktops, all the PCs are hardware. And they said, we're infected by the quackbot virus. We've been trying to clean it for the past week. We've been going 24 hours straight without sleep. We're completely out of it. Can you help us? Okay. So we scrambled. It was kind of last minute. We scrambled and we assembled the team. Lucy Valle, one of our engineers that's over there, was part of the team. I also was involved. So we assembled a team of 4 people, and we remoted into their infrastructure, and we started cleaning machines. Now, at this point, they already were able to kill the virus, but there were still remnants of the virus in every machine that was not cleaned by their antivirus software. So we literally had to touch each of the 300 machines to clean the virus. So that's what we were doing during Valentine's Day weekend. So my wife didn't like that much, but hey, So this is a perfect example of if you, and this is what I told the client, if you would have had virtual desktops, your infection would have been eliminated much quicker, okay? Because let's say a PC is normal PC, right? PC is bad, like the they had, right? You come to a PC loaded with viruses or whatever, you have to clean it, you have to reinstall OS and apps. Okay? Even if you clean it with antivirus, which they did, there were still remnants that the Microsoft and Trend Micro recommend to remove. So, in their case, we spent maybe 40 minutes per PC, and before that, they already spent, like an hour per PC. So they probably spent maybe around 2 hours per PC just for cleaning it. Okay? So that's with a regular PC. Now, if you had virtual desktops, most cases, you configure them in such a way that when the user logs off, the desktop is destroyed. Okay. However, all the user's data remains for next session. So Another example from one of my customers from a couple years ago, a school district that got infected that had virtual desktops and about 2/3 of their desktops virtualized. They got infected by a virus. They immediately sent the message out over loudspeaker. Everybody log off. Log off. Everybody logged off. 2/3 of the virus gone because all the desktops were destroyed. Okay, they had to clean only the third, which was still on physical machines. So 5 minutes per virtual desktop, right, or maybe less. However long it takes to log off and log back in. You can also, if you're in your organization, you do imaging of desktops on a constant basis. Well, that is reduced because with virtual desktops, you don't do any imaging. Okay, you log off, desktop is destroyed, and next time user gets a fresh desktop. Okay, which is clean of any problems or viruses. So data security. I know gentleman here was talking about some data security. Social security numbers lost. So, and this is one of the real cases. Okay, like when social security numbers lost, you have to notify employees or the data provided identity theft monitoring. How long is it going to take you for your laptop? Okay, days to weeks. With virtual desktops, and this is an example from one of our clients, Sean Hopkins. He's the CIO of Jefferson Township, New Jersey. So he went with virtual desktops, and he's a smaller shop, so he bought 5 mobile thin clients. So you see over here, it looks like a laptop, right? It's not a laptop. There's no hard drive. Okay, it's just a thin client. It's just a dumb thin client. So he bought 5 of these for his council members because he wanted to make sure they have access from everywhere, but they were pretty mobile, okay, and moving from building to building. So he wanted to make sure that they can access their information, and he bought 5 of these for them. So if, let's say, this was stolen, and here's another interesting example from that I think I heard from the manufacturer of these, that there was a case in California where a thief stole a bunch of these thin clients, thinking that they were laptops, right? Very happy, and then he returned them back because there's nothing on them. They're not laptops. So yeah, so the idea is, once you have a thin client like that, you can walk around, drive around the country, and connect to your virtual desktop remotely. All the data is in your data center. So you lose it, so what? Nothing is lost. You just replace this thin client and continue on working. All right? So no problems with losing data. Data availability. So, things like Sandy. A good friend of mine, Bill Cosin, is the CIO of Sussex County. Before he went to virtual desktop, he had a case, a very funny case, in his data center. A pipe burst, and sewage came out into his data center. Whoops. So, very unusual, but it happened. And he had to clean it himself because in the middle of the weekend, and so he cleaned it, and he still jokes around that now he has air fresheners in his data center. So that happened to him, and then a few days later, he was one of the first people in government in New Jersey to go with virtual desktops, which I personally helped him install and configure. And probably a year or two ago, he had a case where his judge's building, there was a fire in it. And he just told all the employees, get out of the building and go to this other building that I have, where he had a room full of, like a training room, full of PCs. And since all of his employees are using virtual desktops, they just sat on these PCs, logged into the virtual desktops, and continued work. Okay? So if you have a disaster, you can do that. Now, if you have things like snow days or Sandy or something like that, your user can go home and log into their virtual desktop. Okay? There's actually a case in Pennsylvania where a school district decided to tell students that during snow days they have to work from home because they allowed the students to have virtual desktops. It wasn't a very popular decision. I wouldn't be happy as a student, but hey, it's a policy. Okay, so this is what you can do, and in case of disasters. So just a word, Leon, you said I could just say a couple words, but this is the organization that I work for, Computer Design Integration. Some of our clients, okay, range from schools to Fortune 100s to you know, all kinds of clients that we have, okay. And the organization has been in business 20 years, started in the garage by Eric Baker and his wife Trish. They still walk the hallways, and we have about 300 employees, and we also install and configure all kinds of hardware for you. We're partners with pretty much every manufacturer known to man, like a lot of resellers out there. Okay, we also resell Microsoft, Amazon, and VMware's clouds, and help you onboard into these clouds. And actually, you know, our department helps you do that. But also, like I said, we have our own boutique cloud. This is a management interface that you can have to observe your cloud, or you can have us observe your cloud and manage your cloud for you, right? In our data centers. And you know, I've been working for CTI. Actually, today is my anniversary, 3 years at CTI. And 3 years ago, I was considering where to go. I had an offer from VMware, and it was basically between VMware and CTI, and I decided to go to CTI. Okay, and because CTI there's a couple of unique things that don't exist in any other company that I worked for before. Okay, for example, every year we invite famous people to talk to employees and customers. A couple years ago, we invited George Bush. And we had Sean Hannity come in and interview George Bush at our facility, and George W. Bush. Then we had like Colin Powell another year, Jack Welch another year, Joe Torre, Bill Parcells another year, and I was fortunate this year we had Bill Clinton speak to us, so I was fortunate to shake his hand and make a picture with him. Okay, but no, I did not put it on LinkedIn. It's too cheesy. Okay. So yeah, so we do that, which is very interesting. You know, meeting some of these people, and also the company is very kind of old school, where you know, you're loyal to them, and employees stay there for 10 years on the average, which is very rare in the industry, where the average employee stays for 4 years. Okay. One example, you know, one of our engineers, Dave, amazing engineer, CCIE, you know, this high certification, has 5 daughters, and the leader of a band, had a stroke, collapsed, unfortunately, and our Trish, one of our founders, right? She was a former nurse, so she went with him to the hospital. She stayed with him in the hospital, and he needed an air ambulance, so she flew with him to another hospital, stayed with him, and he had a 10% chance of survival, but eventually recovered, thank God. Took him about a year to recover. Trish made a fundraiser for him. So we collected about $30,000 for him, because when you start having stuff like that, then the expenses pile up. So he still works for us, and he's one of our top engineers. Okay? So very unique company, and I'm just amazed to be working for it. So thank you. Here's my contact information, and if you have any questions, you can ask me questions now, but you know, there's YouTube. Chris Clark is our sales guy. You can make it today, just kind of short notice. But I'm on Twitter. I have a blog. You know, so please contact me whichever one of these ways. I appreciate it. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah. How do you deal with the licensing with these virtual desktops?
Excellent question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
And like now, I mean, it's not Windows 7 anymore. I mean, you're getting different features with Windows 10. How do you deal with the licensing? You know, the upgrading and stuff like that. Licensing.
Okay. So the question was, how do we do the licensing in the virtual desktop world, Microsoft licensing, right? So there's 2 aspects to that. One is, from a technical perspective, if some of you are familiar with something called KMS server, key management server, which is you download from Microsoft, you install it, and it tracks your licenses. This is something that you would want to use when you go to virtual desktops. And it's a good practice to use anyway, right? But in virtual desktops, you're required to use that so that when these virtual desktops, they spawn, right? They spawn, you can use them, when they log off, they get destroyed. So when they spawn, the license is all proper, they contact that server. So that's from a technical perspective. From a perspective of Microsoft legality of how these licenses, how do you license when you're in the virtual desktop world, there's a couple of things. If you subscribe to Microsoft Software Assurance, then you don't need to worry about anything. Okay, you can do virtual desktops all you want. There's no, Microsoft doesn't care. Okay, if you don't have Microsoft Software Assurance, then Microsoft wants you to buy an additional license. Okay, for like I think it's like $100 for the year for virtual desktops. Okay, so that's what they want. However, Microsoft for the longest time did not have virtual desktops until recently. They finally came out with their own virtual desktops, which is kind of like version 1.0. We do deploy them once or twice because they're still very raw. But now that they came out with their virtual desktops, there's a rumor that they're going to change the licensing model because this old licensing model no longer is very useful, right? And now since they have their own virtual desktop, they have to license it properly, right?
Well, like for instance now, with the Windows 7 and the Windows 8, I mean, they're offering free upgrades now. I mean, so how does that interact with your virtual desktops? You follow what I'm saying? So they're offering, like the machines that we have now, I'm going to upgrade to Windows 10 for free, until July. So how does that interact with the virtual desktop licensing structure?
So how do the upgrades interact with the virtual desktop licensing structure?
Am I not making sense?
No, you're making sense. So essentially, for the upgrades, from a technical perspective, if you have a let's say Windows 7 virtual desktop, you can make another image for Windows 10 virtual desktop, okay? And upgrade is pretty easy, okay? All you do is you tell the user, guess what? When you log in, now you're going to have Windows 10. And the user just has Windows 10 because the user is pointing to that image. Or, if you want the user to have both, you can have the user log in and the user gets a choice, Windows 7 or Windows 10 desktop, okay? That's from a technical perspective. From a licensing perspective, as long as you have Microsoft licensing, properly done, for all your desktops, then they don't care whether it's Windows 7 or Windows 10, right? It's just grandfathered in. So if you have software assurance, you can have 7 and upgrade to 10. It's just counted as a user license, one user license. They don't care which operating system you're using. Okay? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so they don't care what operating.
No, as long as you pay for a user. Okay? Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Any questions? More questions? Going once? Going twice? All right. Thank you.